hear me?
Thank you for joining us. Sorry, we needed just a minute to get all the details settled. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. We know you have many, many questions. And I'm Kim Stewart, Communications Director for the City of Aurora. And I'm here with Ryan Luby, our Deputy Director, who is going to take over in just a minute. But I wanted to let you know we've got City Manager Jim Twombly with us, Police Chief Vanessa Wilson, and Fire Chief Fernando Gray, here to answer to the best of their ability with the information we have at hand, your questions about the report and its findings and recommendations. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Ryan, who's going to walk you through how we hope to conduct our press conference today. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. We appreciate your patience on this. Keep in mind, of course, we are still reviewing this independent report. There may be some questions that we just cannot answer, for instance, especially those involving personnel issues, but we'll do our best. And also because there were some questions that we were not able to get to last night during last night's council meeting as we had initially hoped and intended. So before we get to all of this, we ask, of course, that you follow a few ground rules, as I said to you via email, to make this news conference as smooth as possible. We have everyone muted currently. If you have a question, please post a note in the chat feature in the bottom right-hand corner of WebEx here. I think I see that Esteban has already done that. And we will then either unmute you in the order in which that the questions have been received, or we will you can just post your question and we'll read it out loud. And we'll take again questions in the order that they're received. But I guess to start off, we'll have some remarks from City Manager Jim Twombly, followed by Chief Vanessa Wilson, and then followed by Chief Fernando Gray. But for now, Jim, we'll go ahead and send it over to you and make sure we got you up, and you can take it away.
Thanks, Ryan. And good morning, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the team of professionals who undertook this investigation for the city, Jonathan Smith, Roberto Villaseñor, and Dr. Melissa Cole. They devoted countless hours and their years of expertise and experience that have resulted in a report that's extremely thorough, clear, well-documented, and well-written. We need to also thank the law firm of Latham and Watkins that's provided pro bono services that supported the team. That being said, what we have is a report that's very disturbing to me, as it recounts critically in step-by-step fashion the events that unfolded between Mr. Elijah McClain, the Aurora Police Department, and Aurora Fire Rescue on August 24th, 2019. When I first viewed the body-worn camera video, I was uncomfortable with the speed with which action was taken by officers, disappointed with the failure of our body-worn cameras to provide full video, and wondered about the procedure for administering ketamine. I knew that our police department and Aurora Fire Rescue had processes in place to review our personnel actions from that night, and trusted that review would result in appropriate actions. When it became apparent that mine and the public's concerns were not addressed as the Force Review Board in January of 2020 did not find officers' actions non-compliant, I initiated an investigation. That effort stalled and was eventually replaced in working with the conjunction with the Council's Public Safety Committee and the city council. That initial investigation was replaced with the one that we received currently. Since that time, the city council, the city's public safety committee, Chief Wilson, Chief Gray, and I have taken numerous steps to improve and gain trust in our public safety departments. For example, some of those measures include the Public Safety Committee has shown a light on police use of force statistics, hiring, and recruiting. Council has passed ordinances prohibiting choke and carotid holds, no-knock warrants, and placed a moratorium on ketamine. Chief Wilson has changed a number of policies and directives and instituted her new five-point new way plan. Fire Chief Gray will task the medical direction team with appropriate department-wide training and continue education based directly on the recommendations of the report. Those who provide EMS care in the city of Aurora will continue to focus and place further emphasis on patient advocacy. And I have requested, and council has provided funding for a police auditor position that has already completed a body-worn camera audit and is working on a use of canine audit. And finally, we've contracted with a firm that is conducting an overall review of the police department's policies, directives, and practices from recruitment, hiring, training, responding, disciplining, and evaluating. I believe the investigative team has identified the issue that is at the root of the case: the failure of a system of accountability. Training and supervision weaknesses related to stop, use of force, and de-escalation, roles and responsibilities between police and fire on joint scenes, and thoroughness of medical assessment in those cases. Training of major crimes detectives and use of force reviewers specifically, and the role of internal affairs. I will be pursuing with Mayor and Council the establishment of an independent monitor to help us enhance the accountability and transparency of the police department and gain the trust of the public. I believe Chief Wilson has made great strides in holding officers accountable and putting into effect policies and training to improve the department. However, a system of accountability should not be dependent on who sits in the chief's chair. It needs to be put into place so that it functions and represents the community's desire for constitutional, unbiased, and respectful policing that holds officers accountable. I believe an independent monitor can help us achieve that. Thank you.
Chief Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. I want to first acknowledge the extreme anger and grief that Ms. McLean and Elijah's friends and family have endured and will continue to endure due to his death. The bottom line is Elijah McLean should still be here today. Nothing I can say here today, or changes that I've made, or changes that I will continue to make, can bring him back. And for that, I'm extremely sorry. I want to assure the McLean family and the community that we will continue to make changes to address the issues that were not only highlighted in this report, but also are going to be highlighted in the other investigations that are ongoing, to include a criminal investigation by the AG's office. We will address failures that are uncovered, and I will hold myself as well as our officers accountable. We will evolve, and we will become the police department that the community can trust. I know the trust is broken, and I know we have a long way to go. And with Mr. Twombly's desire to create an independent monitor's position, I have to agree with it, because I feel that is the only way we are going to regain the trust of the community. I have put into place several different directive changes. Specifically, I know they highlighted some in the in Mr. Smith's report. but were specific to issues that I found and that I was disturbed by in the call. The suspicious person call, directive change, which is talking about giving officers that opportunity to take a moment to slow things down, to watch what they see happening, and not to solely rely on what a caller says, and to gain those factors, and to obviously always use de-escalation techniques, as well as the 911 callers, when they first receive that call, to be asking specific questions of why this person is suspicious. The report talked about implicit bias. I've been talking about implicit bias since I took over as the chief of police, and I believe that we all have it, and I want to ensure that if a community member is calling someone in as a suspicious person, that is never due to the color of their skin or the clothing that they're wearing. There are other directives that I've put in place, the officer relief directive, which is causes, if an officer has been in a struggle, like was on that evening with Elijah, that those officers will be, when it's safe to do so, removed from that situation to try and de-escalate the situation and calm things down, and allow them to be checked for injuries, allow them to give information to the supervisors on scene directly, and to disconnect that volatile situation that was occurring with that subject. The Force Review Board and the ability for it to investigate cases, I felt was lacking. And so we have instituted a force investigations unit that will dig into the deeper questions and make sure they go out and talk to witnesses and such. But I know that's still not enough. And so I'm looking forward to the other investigations that are coming through, and I'm looking forward to being able to implement those changes as they're brought forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Wilson. Chief Gray.
Good morning. My name is Fernando Gray, and I'm the fire chief. First and foremost, I want to echo the sentiments of Chief Wilson as it relates to Elijah. His death is just a tragedy. And Aurora Fire Rescue appreciates the comprehensive and thorough review of the incident that's detailed in the report. Elijah's loved ones and our local community deserve to see the answers contained in the report, and they deserve our action moving forward. The report identified several areas where AFR can improve processes and protocols, and we're committed to making those enhancements. In fact, we did not wait until the results of this report to begin making changes and have already initiated improvements. One of our department pillars includes ensuring that all of our work groups and the service that they provide remain free from bias. To accomplish this goal, we have deployed a group of our own employees whose mission is to have difficult yet courageous conversations about implicit bias in our fire stations across the city. I'm proud of the individuals who have come forward to form our AFR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team. In addition, each member of the team has expressed a passion for promoting and accepting an encouraging environment within the department and identifying methods to better connect with our diverse community, which we believe will improve service and patient care. The team includes members from the rank of firefighter to captain, and I look forward to having further discussions with them as it relates to providing training to our department as it relates to implicit and unconscious bias. The panel of investigators was complimentary regarding the AFR quality assurance and quality improvement process. This process is used to evaluate the performance of our EMS system. AFR focuses on continuous improvement. Therefore, we don't intend to stop with the current model that we have. We've already taken more steps to enhance the process. Before the moratorium, the physicians on our medical direction team reviewed every administration of ketamine. Now, to enhance the review of care provided in those situations, physicians have expanded their ongoing reviews to include all patient care reports when restraints are applied or medications are used to sedate patients. We also received critical feedback in the report about the overestimation of weight in this case. As a proactive approach, a protocol amendment went into place related to the administration of all weight-based medications. If an accurate weight cannot be obtained by the patient or family member, several crew members are required to determine their own independent weight estimations to see if their estimates are in agreement. We also have incorporated technology such as a new records management system and also a learning management system to assist the department in furthering our capability to capture and document patient assessments and provide relevant training in an efficient and effective manner. Aurora Fire Rescue will continue to review the details of this report and has tasked the medical direction team with addressing the noted recommendations. The team will address the recommendations by focusing on protocol and policy changes, technology adjuncts, and also the associated necessary trainings. The implementation strategy and timeline of the recommendations will be presented and provided to the Public Safety Committee during the month of April 2021. AFR aspires to provide professional, high-quality emergency medical care to our community members, and we'll use these recommendations to further that goal and to create actionable next steps. Thank you. Ryan, at this time, we can move to the question and answer period.
Very good. Thank you, Chief Gray. Thank you, Chief Wilson and City Manager Jim Twombly. We're going to go, like I said, we're going to go in the order that these questions were received, so bear with us as we go through them. First question was from Esteban, and Esteban, I don't know if we're going to unmute you here. If you want to ask your question out loud, we can do that.
Hi, hi, this is Esteban Hernandez with Denverite and Colorado Public Radio. My question was for Chief Wilson. I wanted to ask you what you thought of the recommendations in the report and the feasibility of most of them. Can people expect some of those changes to be implemented as soon as next month, by the end of the year? Can you give us a clearer picture of what will happen, what will come of those recommendations?
So truly, and I think they highlighted it in the report itself, a lot of these changes we have already implemented. They commended the Officer Relief Directive. They commended the Suspicious Persons Directive. The change of having internal affairs look at all in custody deaths or high significant, injury can be done. And so, training, looking at training of the Major Crimes Unit, we've already tasked my division chief over the Major Crimes Unit to look at training and making sure that we are doing best practices as was referenced in the 157-page document. And we will still continue to review these and make sure that we are matching up with all the recommendations that they made.
Thank you, Chief Wilson. We have a question from Lori Jane Gliha. Lori, Jane, do you want to go ahead and fire away?
Yes. Okay, I've got a question for the Chief of Police and one for Chief of Fire. For Chief Wilson, what will it take for you to discipline the 2 remaining officers who were involved in the Elijah McClain altercation? And if you think that Aurora PD's action thus far is appropriate, why is that? And then for Chief Gray, why do you think the consultants found this culture of a patient is not a patient until police say so? And what are you doing to address that?
Okay, thank you, Lori, for that, Lori Jane, for that question. And I know it's on the minds of everyone. It has been a question that I have answered continually through the time of taking over as the Chief of Police. It's important that everyone listening understand that this is a criminal case at this point. The governor has ordered the Attorney General look into the incident with Elijah and his death, and therefore it is completely inappropriate for me to comment on wrongdoing or anything that I should elaborate on until that grand jury has the opportunity to look at this case with their eyes, and for the Attorney General to come back with recommendations for either indicting or not indicting.
Chief Gray, are you able to respond?
Yes, sir, I am. And thank you for the question, Lori Jane, and it's a very good question. The whole concept of perhaps some of our members feeling like a patient is not a patient until the police basically gives that approval, that's not something that I would say is prevailing in all calls. I would say that that type of culture exists perhaps when it is a call where a person is in police custody. At the end of the day, I think you asked a really great question about what we're going to do to correct that. Chief Wilson and I are actually going to partner together and make sure that within the Aurora Fire Rescue and also within the Aurora Police Department policies, that there will be verbiage that basically clearly defines a process for us to transition care. So again, I do think that that is something that is that needs to be corrected, and we're going to work together in conjunction to make sure that we get that corrected. So again, thank you for that question.
Thank you, Chief Gray. We have a question from Jennifer Kowaleski from Denver 7. Jennifer.
Good morning. Thank you for taking the question. My question is for Chief Gray. I know there is currently a moratorium on the use of ketamine in Aurora, but what are your thoughts about the continued use of ketamine in light of the findings of this report?
Thank you again for that question, and that's also a very good question. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to review this particular report in total before moving forward with any type of next steps. So at the end of the day, I do know that the moratorium was basically from yesterday until 30 days. We do not envision re-implementing ketamine into our system within the next 30 days. Again, as I said a little bit earlier, we're going to basically present some information to the Public Safety Committee about our steps on how to move forward, not only in addressing the issue of ketamine, but also in our patient assessment processes. So again, thank you for that question.
Thank you, Chief. We have a question from Elise over at the Denver Post. Elise, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thanks, everyone. My question is for Chief Wilson. It's actually a series of questions here. The detectives who led this investigation that the report called flawed, are they being investigated or have they been disciplined for the way they ran this investigation?
So to answer that question, we all know that there was a House bill that was implemented where investigations into OISs needed to be investigated by not only the agency that was involved, but a partner agency. We partner with the Denver Police Department. When this tragedy occurred, Chief Metz at the time asked that the Denver Police Department come in and look at this as an OIS. And so Denver detectives were alongside our detectives, as well as represented from the Adams County District Attorney's Office was also monitoring the interviews. So this, again, I can't really go into whether this case is going to the grand jury again. And so I can't say what is going to happen next until that criminal case is completed. But I can say that there were more than just the Aurora Police Department's eyes on this investigation. And I know that Mr. Smith and his panel of experts found that the investigation was not to their standards. And so we'll be looking at training and best practices moving forward.
Thank you, Chief. Rick Salinger at Channel 4. Rick.
Hi, can you hear me okay there?
We sure do, sir.
Okay. On page 19 and 20 of the investigation, there is a reference to the 911 caller. And I'm not clear if this was a later interview with that caller, but asked if the person, now we know as Elijah McClain, was a bad person. The detective replied, yes, he was caught. I don't know if he was a bad person, but he got the help that he needed. Was that an appropriate response? Chief Wilson?
So I don't have the report in front of me, so I can't read specifically what you're referring to, if that was the detective or if that was the officer that called the RP that evening. I believe that that response can be taken a number of ways, and obviously him losing his life is a completely inappropriate statement for that. I'm not sure what the decision making was on that statement.
Thank you, Chief. Again, we're going in the order of the questions are received here from folks, and we're going to get to them as many as we possibly can, probably till about 10 after 11, really no later than that, hopefully. Colleen Slevin over at the Associated Press. Colleen, we'll take it away whenever you are ready.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a question for Chief Wilson. Chief, you mentioned this force investigation unit that you've established. Is that new in response to this report, or is this something that has been in existence before the findings of this report, and how does it work? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So online, our SOPs and such should be available to be published. What I'll make sure that we get that done today, so that the public can look at it as well as the press. The Force Investigations Unit came from just realizing that we needed to do a better job digging into these cases. The way it was set up in the beginning, the Force Review Board did not have the ability to go back and interview officers, ask follow-up questions, and so we felt it was important to have people that are specialized in the application of force and are subject matter experts within our agency to be asking those specific and hard questions and looking at all policies that may have been violated within that incident, not just the use of force. They were stood up on November 20th of last year, and they are up and running as we speak. So the process is for them to do a deeper dive, to go back out to interview other people that may have been missed the night of the incident, to make sure that all the photographs and such were taken, to see if there's video cameras from any surrounding businesses, and really do an extensive investigation into what occurred. And that would also be with asking follow-up questions to not only the officers themselves, their supervisors, but also the community. And then they are to bring that back and present to the Force Review Board so that they can make a better informed decision. And if there are questions the Force Review Board also needs, then they can actually go back and redo that as well. Obviously, with the announcement of the independent monitor, I'm not sure how quickly that will be set up, but I will be working to make sure that whoever that is and whatever city management and council is wanting for us, that we will adapt the Force Investigation Unit to fit that.
Thank you, Chief. Chris Vanderveen over at 9 News. Chris.
Hi, Chief Wilson. Thanks for doing this. You listed a number of changes that have been enacted in the last year or so, but one critical issue still remains the same. If there is an in-custody death, if there is an officer involved shooting today, the Aurora Police Department, along with its Major Crimes Division, is still going to lead that investigation, is still going to present its findings to the district attorney. In light of the findings of this report, how can people in the public trust that the Aurora Police Department's Major Crimes Division is going to thoroughly investigate these type of offenses in light of what a lot of people have called a damning report as to how your officers conducted the Elijah McClain investigation?
Thank you for that. I understand there are many questions, and this report has tainted a lot of people's opinions on our Major Crimes Investigations Unit. But I can tell you that there are good investigators, but I understand that the trust is broken. I absolutely understand that. And so I plan on reaching out to both the 17th Judicial District as well as the 18th Judicial District and talk to the district attorneys of how they would like us to move forward, God forbid, on our next critical incident. And whether that is to set back and give the lead to another agency, or to have the district attorneys investigate it themselves. Lots more conversations have to happen. I received this report at the same time the public received it yesterday and spent the entire day reading it, going over it. And so we have to sit down, roll up our sleeves, and make sure that we're doing everything possible to reinstill the community's trust. So that's what I intend to do.
Thank you, Chief. I think we want to go to the Colorado Sentinel. Looks like we have a package of questions from Quincy Snowden and Kara Mason over there. Katie on our team here is going to unmute both of you. Quincy and Kara, go ahead whenever you are ready, and you can ask your questions.
Hi, Chief. This is Quincy. Following up on the Force Investigation Unit, will that fully replace the Force Review Board, or will that entity continue to exist in some form?
At this point, my plan was to have it to continue to exist in some form. Obviously, conversations will have to happen with city management and the direction they want us to go. I believe it's a valuable group when you take the Force Investigations Unit and having that deeper dive in it, as well as I have said publicly that I wanted to bring community input and community members onto that Force Review Board to actually hear the investigation that the Force Investigations Unit will give. Again, I have to speak to my bosses and to council after this report has come out and get direction on where they would like me to go. But I think that we're still going to need to have this Force Investigations Unit in some sort of board, whether that be an independent monitor or what we create, looking at things from community eyes as well as police expert eyes.
Thanks, Chief. I see that Kara over there at the Sentinel has a question as well. Kara, did you want to read it out loud, or would you like us to read it? Your choice.
Yeah, I got it. Hi, Chief. A Sentinel story last week highlighted an exceptional loss of officers in the department. And I think this is probably going to be talked about at public safety here in a few days. But given the recommendations made yesterday by investigators, what would you say to officers considering leaving the department?
I would say that I know I still have faith in this agency. I do. And I still have faith in the officers that are out there on the street right now, putting their lives on the line for people in this community. We have made mistakes. We have many investigations to get through. There will probably be other recommendations coming down from the Attorney General's office, the patterns and practices. And we're facing a grand jury on criminality on the incident with Elijah. What I would say to them is to remember your why and why you chose to wear this badge and to serve and protect this community, and that there are people that need you, and but we need to evolve, and they need to accept that I am going to continue to hold people accountable, but we need to be the change agents. We need to evolve. Police reform has been a call for a revolution across the nation, and we are going to adapt and evolve so that the community can believe in us. And I would ask that they stay the course with me. And I know change is uncomfortable, but I need them, and I hope that they will follow.
Thank you, Chief. We have a question from Julia Cardi over at the Denver Gazette. Julia, would you like to read your questions out, or would you like us to read it?
I can go ahead, thank you. I have two questions. They're on different topics, so I can just ask them at the same time, but then just answer however they make sense. My first question is for Chief Wilson and Chief Gray. First of all, why did the police officers and fire responders decline interviews with the investigation panel, and why were they not compelled to speak with investigators?
So that's a great question, and I'm really glad you brought it up so that the whole community can hear this answer. They are being looked at criminally, so therefore their Miranda rights as any other citizen kick in, and they have the right to have the lawyer present and all those things. With Garrity kicks in, then I'm compelling them to speak. So therefore, and I think Mr. Smith did a good presentation last night, saying he understands why they were not able to discuss things with them, and so had this investigation occurred after the grand jury, I believe that they would have all cooperated with their questioning.
Thank you, Chief. We're going to go to Blair Miller over at Denver 7. Blair, I'm not sure if you have a microphone up, but if you do, I'm happy to read your question. You can read your question.
Okay, I've got two quick questions. First for Chief Gray. I know that state law prevents the release of the Aurora fire preliminary review with the EMS director. But just wondering if that could have been changed to allow the independent investigative team to, have access to these records. And secondly, for either chief or for the city manager, do you feel like this was worth the money?
So I'll comment real quickly on your question as it relates to the release of the quality of improvement, quality assurance information. Again, as Dr. Costello said last night, and I think she even mentions that she supports the approach of not basically releasing that information. I would have to do some follow-up with you to determine what that particular statute is. But at the end of the day, I'm not an attorney, so I'll just say it like this again, is that there is a state statute that prevents that information from being released. As it relates to the whole concept of it being worth the money, I'll actually allow Mr. Twombly to basically talk about the financial implications. But I will say that from my perspective, any opportunity to make sure that we are improving our processes and making sure that something like this can never happen again, I think it's well worthwhile. But at any rate, that's my opinion, and I'll let Mr. Twombly basically expound on that particular response.
Thanks, Chief. Yes, I definitely believe it was worth the cost to the city. As anybody who has looked or reviewed the report can see, it's extremely thorough, very well thought out, and I thought that the team did an excellent job. We got an excellent team that we put together, and so very much worth everything, all the the money that we put into it.
Thank you, Jim. I see that we have another question from Quincy over at the Sentinel, specifically for Jim. Quincy, do you want to ask your question about that?
Yeah, Mr. Twombly, I was asking how the independent monitor is or isn't going to be folded into the work of the Community Police Task Force. I know they've been doing work for some time and they're expected to have recommendations. Some people were expecting them to have some version of a proposed Office of an Independent Monitor. So wondering how you're going to include or not include their efforts and if you've been in communication with that team.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, that Community Police Task Force has been working for over a year now and has had started off, I think, with semi-monthly meetings and has worked very hard over the course of about the last 14 months, I believe. And so they will be presenting their recommendations to the City Council in the coming weeks, and we absolutely want to take their recommendations and fold those into what the mayor and council choose to do, how they choose to shape an independent monitor office. And so we look forward to all parties working together on that.
Thanks, Jim. We have time for one more question. I know, Lori Jane, you have several, so if you want to go ahead, we'll take your questions. And then from there, we're just going to wrap it up. Of course, try to get to people's questions outside of this news conference. Lori Jane, go ahead.
Okay, I just have a follow-up for Chief Wilson. Given the findings last night, are you willing to allow a third party to come in and re-review other cases of officer misconduct from the past? And just to clarify on the firing or discipline of these officers, are you saying that if there is no crime that's found, that there will be no action taken, or would you still consider discipline?
So the first part of your question is, we're an open book. We have several investigations looking into everything that we have done today and what we've done in the past. I think that's the point of the patterns and practice investigation. And so I'm looking forward to whatever they come up with. And obviously we will incorporate the suggestions that they bring forward and that we truly may be mandated to do. And I'm willing to do that. And as far as the question about disciplining the officers, again, I do not want to taint any the grand jury's opinions. And I cannot comment on that question. And I apologize for that. And I have to remain neutral in that.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief Gray. Thank you, City Manager Jim Twombly. Thank you all for joining us here on this news conference and bearing with us as we kind of navigate this technological COVID world. If you have questions for us, of course, follow up to this news conference, send us an email. We'll do our best to get back to you. As you heard, City Council is going to revisit this investigation and presentation from Jonathan Smith and his team at a TBD date that'll allow Council to ask some questions. But in the meantime, like I said, we'll take your follow-up questions. Thank you for joining us.